So now it's in there. It's ready to go in terms of administering it to your students. So now I go back to home. I go to my library. I find my slideshow, Creative Commons. And what I want to point out to you here is that at this point, you can request to do a live session. You can set it up for homework for your students. You can email, you can do all the different emails that you want to do. You can actually preview it. So if we were to do a live session, I will click here for a live session. And the reason that's important is that you're going to need to make sure that you get this code and you have that available for students. What I would recommend that you do is to use your video presentation station at your desk and log in as a student. So instead of having the teacher log in, as we see right here, you would use your iPad and the iPad app to present it. That way you can walk around the classroom, make sure that students are where they need to be if you need to or want to. You also then can project the Nearpod presentation on the board for students who may not have that information. Now, some teachers use it differently, and there are pros and cons, depending on how you're going to use it. But the students will need this PIN code, so you'll want to make sure you put that on the board or project it. It should also show at the top left, and that's important too in case people get jump off of the presentation, or they get knocked off the presentation due to a wireless connection. So it's always nice to have this projected so that you know exactly what that PIN number is. So if I were go now, just pretend this is my iPad that I'm showing you, and as a teacher view, I would go in and I would wait for students to sign in. They would go up here to join session. It would ask them for that. I have gone ahead and taken my iPad and logged in with the Nearpod app and used the TXYWD. So you can see there is one person listed here watching your show. Again, this is from the teacher viewpoint. And so if I clicked on here, it would show student 0001, which you can always access. It's also right here on the front screen. Now, from my iPad, and I'm not sure you can see this because I don't have any reflection as to what's being presented here, but on my iPad, there's a place for me to put in my name, so I will do that. Okay, but I'm going to move forward here, and I'm going to go to my first slide. Let's see if that's been changed. Yeah, so that has my actual name, which is helpful because if you ever see a red icon up here, it indicates that someone has left the presentation, and you have lost their focus. They are looking at something else on their device. That is just one of the really cool things I think about this particular software, because you can monitor what's going on with your students. And so if there was more than one, or if I dropped out here, it would actually indicate who had the red dot, and therefore those are the one person or the few people who might be off of your presentation. And so they might be off legally because it's wireless problem. You can go check with them, or you can call them out, whatever is appropriate, what's best for your students. So I'm now going to move to, I'm going to talk about this slide. I'm going to move to the next slide, and it is automatically moving it on my device. So if I move to this slide, which is the next one, for me as a student, it actually has the question. Copyright law was created to be sure that individuals and businesses don't get ripped off. It does not show this other piece. When I answer the question, which I will do right now, and I'll send it. I answered it as true. And in a second here, you should see my answer show up. I got to confirm it. And because the correct answer was B, I answered it incorrectly, and it will show here. So this is the reason that I like that this piece that I'm showing you right now is not reflected on the video projector, that this is actually the piece that's on your iPad, and your projector shows what the students see, which I will show you that version in a minute, but I wanted to make sure you saw what you're going to be hopefully looking at on your device. Now you can also share this with students. So when it's shared with students, what students see is this piece right here, but it does not have the student name. So it does not identify that student name. And again, I'm not sure that you can see this, but that's the piece that would look, that's how it would look. Gives you an opportunity to talk with students about the question and the content and how people answered, and especially that's especially important if you have a lot of people not getting what they should be getting, and or if it's an open discussion where there are more opinions, determine how they came up with that answer, talk about evidence, etc. So I'm going to move through fairly. Now this one is actually a web page, and so from your students' perspective, it's a live web page, and students can actually click on here and then say, okay, you know, I want to find out what pictures of flowers are available as Creative Commons licensed on Google or on Flickr or on Google Images or whatever it happens to be. So they're actually being able to interact with that web page live. And then the last thing I want to show you is how, from the teacher's perspective, a video looks. Now, again, this is another reason that I think it's important that you put the this information, the teacher version, on your iPad as you're presenting, and put a student version on the video projector, because the teacher sees this and your students actually see a ready to click video. And if you have 30 students in your class, you would have perhaps 30 different videos going on if you were trying to do this live. You might question, then why do I bother doing that? Because I don't want them to have it live. And that's because if you want to also use this presentation as a homework for them, they would need to have that access. But if you're doing it as a class presentation, then as a teacher, if you have selected the student version to go up on the video projector, you can say to students, don't click the play button. I'm going to play this live for everyone. And then you could access that as another student, but have it presented through your video projector. And I believe that those were the demonstrations that I wanted to show. So again, as a teacher, you would want to leave this presentation, and I just need to see, now I'm done with that. And it'll take me back to my library. But now what I can do is I can go to the home page and I can access reports. And here's the one that I just did. And if I did it more than once, then it'll show the different dates that I've done that. But I can click here and I can get a summary of how my students did. So you can see how my participation was and the answer to the questions. You can look at the individual quizzes, polls, etc. And so you have that information that will be helpful for you as a teacher to move forward with your students. So now I'm going to stop this. I'm going to go back to my library. And I'm going to go back here. And I'm going to go to homework. And this is the pin number for the homework. Okay, so that'll stay that way, but you notice that it's different than I did for the live one. So don't count on that live session to have the exact same one if you do just the homework version. Okay. So now if I log out, just to be on the safe side here, I'm going to log into my Nearpod account through my app on the iPad. And I'm going to pretend I'm a student now. So I'm going to go into join session. So this is what the student would see, and they would need to enter the PIN. So my PIN number that I've been told by my teacher to enter is LJQO. So now you're going to see what the student sees, and the teacher is monitoring everything from the iPad. So now as a student, I'm going to put in my student name, and the teacher is doing, again, this totally from the iPad. Here's that question. Here's how it looks to the student. This time I'll say false, and I'm going to show you what the teacher can then do, what happens when the teacher shares the information. So again, this would be for the whole class, but the teacher does not share names. Just, okay, everybody got this one correct, excellent, but if that was not the case, it would provide some discussion opportunities. Okay, so let's say we were at this slide and the teacher was talking about what this meant, giving examples, etc. If, and this is only if you're a pilot teacher, but if we get enough good feedback, we might be able to get more teachers involved with this. But this feature will allow students to take notes. And so a student can, oh, here's where you type your notes on the device. It's a little different off to the right. So I can say, important to remember the reasons why, blah, 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 blah. Okay. As a teacher, I'm monitoring this. Okay, as the teacher, I'm now allowing students to go to this web page. So as a student, I click on this web page, and then I can actually interact live with this web page. And now as a teacher, I'm going to move to the video. So I'm going to slide through these pretty quickly. And remember when I showed you the teacher version, I couldn't really click it, but here as a student, I can click here, and if this was projected, if you were showing it throughout the whole class, I can actually show the whole video. Okay. But keep in mind too, and this, some teachers like it this way, but if you have a number of students and they're all trying to listen to this at the same time, you're going to have that going unless they all have headphones and going to their own ears. So, you know, just be aware of that. Okay, so I'm going to exit this as a student. It says, would you like your notes sent by email? So this is nice because students can then get their individual notes that they've created. It'll be attached to a PDF version of this presentation. So I'll say no at this point. And here we are back again as a student. So that's pretty much how you would use Nearpod, at least to get started.